Hi there, I'm here with the third edition of the Color My Page Challenge. Today I'm doing the Caroline edition, which consists of 3 Daniel Smith colors that you voted for on my blog post. That Caroline's been so kind to provide me with for doing a review and for trying to paint. Right, the colors that you chose are, and this must be no surprise, the first is Moon Glow, which is the purple color that gives a certain effect. It's a beautiful paint, so really curious what that's gonna do. Then the second paint, and here is something strange happened to the paint. This is Quinacridone Coral, but I don't know if you can look into the vial. Do you see the white spot there? There's actually mold on this paint. I've never had that before. So I wonder, this is the first time it happens to me with watercolor paint. So I'll just scrape it off and work with it. But I'm really curious how it happened. Because I did put the lid on when the paint was still moist, but I've never ever seen this before. So I was a bit surprised. I don't think it will have an effect on the paint though. And then the third color is Quinacridone Gold. So I am really curious what this combination of colors is going to do to my painting, and I'll start making a little color mixing chart. Okay, so I did a little color mixing chart. Here we have the Moon Glow, which is a grayish kind of purple that granulates heavily and has an effect. There is the Quinacridone Coral and the Quinacridone Gold. And these are the mixes you can make with it. And as you can see, it is a pretty warm palette. Not necessarily happy colors, but warm colors. There is 2 beautiful bronzes here. And we have a beautiful purple, a sort of a mauve purple. And we have something that reminds me a bit of alizarin crimson, or what's the color called? Madder Lake. I often use it for the lips and the ears. And then there is this really beautiful, vibrant red color that you get when you mix the Quinacridone Coral with the Quinacridone Gold, and a beautiful orange. But all in all, when you make a painting, normally you would choose a balanced palette, like really warm colors and then a really cool color to balance it out. In this case, I don't really have a cool, this is kind of, because it is an effect paint, this is not really what I would call a cool color, especially not when you look at the mixes. However, that being said, this is the outcome of the challenge, which is why it's called the challenge. So I'm going to make a page. I'm not really sure what is going to happen yet. I'm going to use a technique of mine that's just gonna help something, that's gonna let something evolve and take it from there. I'll play it speed paint for you and give my comments on the paint while you see me painting. So the first thing I'm doing with this watercolor paint is I'm making watercolor stains by diluting it heavily and letting the colors flow into each other. Then I take some paint back off with my brush and I drop some paint on it to see what the flow of this paint is. And as you can see, it's very good. Then I start drawing onto this paint, and what is really interesting for me is how well this paint will keep when you get your eraser over it. Because as you can see, the white pencil there, that's on my paper now, is an eraser pencil, and it's very soft, but still some paints, they will come off when you start erasing. The Daniel Smith watercolor paint does not come off, so it stains your paper really well and is very suitable for drawing over it for some designs. So that's really great for the technique that I'm using here. When my sketch is done, I make a layer of underpainting using a darker, most of the time a blue or a purple or a grey for it. In this case I'm using the Moonglow, and what strikes me is that on my color chart the Moonglow paint separated into two colors and granulated heavily and was therefore almost an effect paint. I don't see that happening on my paper here. I don't know if that's got anything to do with the underlying layer of paint that it stops granulating and the splitting of color, but nonetheless it still is a really fabulous color for shading as a layer underneath the colors that will follow. Then I'm using a light mixture of Moonglow and Quinacridone Gold for the skin tone, so I added a little bit of shading in skin tone. And I sort of made a hairdo into a hat and sort of a lace that ties under the chin, and made that an orange that is a mix of Quinacridone Gold and Quinacridone Coral, which is a very warm and lively orange. The mouth was painted with a light mixture of Quinacridone Coral and a little bit of Moonglow, which really makes it look a little bit like Madder Lake, and that's a really beautiful, or alizarin crimson, it's a really beautiful colour for the lips. Then I am taking pure Quinacridone Coral for the hat, and I am going to test something, which is the blooming of the paint. So I am adding a big load of water on the top of the hat, or here on the bottom as you can see, and what I wanted to see is how this paint reacts to it, because normally you would get bloom as in the paint that would start to flow with very hard edges. As you can see here, there is a big hard line in the hat where I did that, so you know it does really respond to it. The paint, this color, because that is different for every pigment, doesn't flow as much, that you have this very even transition in color, so it does bloom a bit. But that's really okay, because I kind of like that effect, because that really shows that this is watercolor. What I liked is that, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a little white spot on the clothes, and I added a little bit of paint with a brush that is not too wet, and I sort of dabbed into it to make the white, to give some color to the white, and that really turned out lovely, because you can't even see that I just did it, whereas with some paints that would also create bloom, and it didn't do that here, so that's really great. I'm adding even more layers of the coral, and what's really fantastic to notice is that my brush doesn't pick up any paint of the previous layers at all, which is very great when you're working in layers. I'm really impressed by that, because I have used a lot of paint, so I was expecting some paint to come off, but it didn't. Here I am using the Moonglow, not diluted too much, for details like eyebrows and eyelashes, and I love how the paint behaves in my brush, because it does really well for this kind of brush drawing. I am very pleased at how the Quinacridone Coral behaves, because many red paints, when you paint over them layer by layer, especially when you applied thick layers, the paint will come off, or you will accidentally take off the previous layers, and with this paint it didn't happen at all, nowhere in this drawing, which is fine. Here I'm doing another brush drawing with a mixture of Moonglow and Quinacridone Gold. I am drawing in branches to adorn the lace that ties around the chin. And again, these colors too behave perfectly for drawing with your brush. At this stage of the painting, I was thinking what to do next because I felt I needed a bit more of background, a little more solid background. So I decided to add some sunlight in the background in the form of the Quinacridone Gold. And I'm going to use different dilutions here. So I'm going to use it thick, almost undiluted, and I'm going to apply it very, very watery, just to see what the paint does and try to create some texture with this paint. Now, ma vieille dame, the old lady, is nearly finished, so I am just applying a last layer of paint for extra definition. So I'm adding just a little more shading here and there. And I loved the paint. It worked really well, and I'm looking forward to using it more because it worked fantastic actually. So I took the challenge to paint with these 3 colors, and I hope you will do the same. I invite you to become a member of the Color My Page Facebook group by visiting my blog. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Bye!